Hello, I'm Michael Embry, and welcome to our second program previewing the 2015 Kentucky Book Fair. The Book Fair, if you don't know by now, will be November the 14th at the Frankfort Convention Center, starting at 9 in the morning and running until 4:30 in the afternoon. And there's also the Children's and Teens Day, or the Kids and Teens Day, on November the 13th, also at the Convention Center. It starts at 9 in the morning and runs until 2 in the afternoon. Now, the Kentucky Book Fair this year is sponsored by the Kentucky Humanities Council, and with their grant, we've brought in a lot of authors. In fact, we have around 200 authors and illustrators. So it's they've written about all sorts of things: sports, cookbooks, fiction, nonfiction, anything you want. And we all know that books make great gifts, and with a certain season coming up, it's a good time to show up at the Kentucky Book Fair and buy your Christmas gifts. And they make great birthday gifts, and they make great gifts to yourself as well. The Kentucky Book Fair, as we all know, it's a celebration of reading and writing. And we'll have symposiums, presentations, panel discussions, and it's a great opportunity to sit down and meet your favorite author and just talk about books. It's just a great day about books. The Kentucky Book Fair, as I mentioned, we're going to have around 200 authors, and I'm not going to mention the authors here because we take up the whole program. But if you go to www.kybookfair.blogspot.com, you can find the list of confirmed authors. And our webmaster, she updates us about every week or so, so check on it all the time. And we also have a Facebook page that we post notes and list of authors and whatnot, and go to that as well and like it. Again, we'll have, Wendell Berry will be there, George Ella Lyon, who is our Kentucky Poet Laureate, and a host of others. And including in these of the authors, we'll have our three guests today. We'll have Misty Baker, Lauren Brandenburg, and Jerry Deaton. I want to welcome you to the program today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
And we'll start with Misty. Misty, you're from Buckner,
Kentucky.
In Oldham County.
In Oldham County, right.
And you're going to be there with your book,
A Time for Everything.
Time for Everything.
Yes.
And what's A Time for Everything about?
A Time for Everything is a historical romance. It's set in 1866, Lebanon, Tennessee. It's about a Confederate widow who goes to work for a Union veteran. Mm-hmm. And so, it's right after the Civil War. The whole country is still reeling from it. So it's just kind of about reconnecting, the divisions between people. And so it's a lot more than just a romance.
Okay. Well, I would assume that would take a lot of research, right?
It did. It actually took quite a bit of research. It started probably back in 2010, and finally got it finished last year. So.
I've had some friends who've written historical fiction, and readers demand that they be accurate.
Yes.
It's just not something of the imagination.
Yes, they will catch it if you are not accurate. And that is one thing that a lot of reviewers have said, that it is very historically accurate. So I must
know
have.
There's been a lot of good buzz about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's won some awards already. So it's released in July of this year.
Mm-hmm. So, and you're also a children's author.
That's right.
And are you going to have some of those titles there as well?
Yes, I'll have two of my children's books there. One is Quentin's Problem, and that's about a little pirate boy who can't say R.
Okay.
And then Fuzzy Buzzy's Treasure is about a little bumblebee who finds a field of wildflowers, and she doesn't want to share them with her sisters. And both of those were based on my kids.
Well, you when did you publish your first book?
My first book back in 2010 is when I first published.
And what made you decide to be an author?
I've always loved to write, always loved to read, and I started writing some little stories when my kids were very young, and I turned one of them into a publisher, and they really liked it and wanted to publish more. So.
Well, you do your romance and your children's. Does anyone give you more satisfaction, or is it?
I love writing both. I do. I actually write several different types of romance. I write fantasy, historical, comedy, contemporary, just whatever I'm inspired to write. So.
Well, your fantasy, aren't they more? Correct me if I'm wrong. For young adults.
No, my fantasies
Okay.
they're for adults. Now my romantic comedy is very sweet and it's very funny and it's appropriate for teens and beyond.
Okay. What do you like to read?
I love romance. I love fantasy. Pretty much anything that catches my eye.
Well, now you're a full-time author, right? And I guess you're a full-time mom as well.
Full-time mom. That's right.
Do you get much critique from your children about your children's books, or are they too old for them? Or?
They're well, I've got a 13-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old. So my 7-year-old is still pretty impressed with Mom. The other two are like, "Are you writing again?" You know. But yeah.
Do you? What's your writing habits? I mean, do you wait till the kids are off to school before you?
I do a lot of writing when they're in school. Yeah. So the summers are spent doing, events and promoting and mostly, but I try to plan to write when they're in school while it's nice and quiet. Yeah.
Have you been to the book fair before?
I have not been to the book fair before. This will be my first time.
Okay, you've never been as a patron either, or are you looking forward to it?
I am. I think it'll be exciting. Yeah.
Well, in fact, I met you at another book fair back in, I guess, Madison, Indiana.
Right.
And you are pretty active, aren't you?
Yeah, I get around.
Well, the reason I ask is that authors really have to do that, don't they?
They really
They
do.
just can't sit at home and
Right.
compose their stories and just sit back and watch the royalties.
Right. I think that's a lot of mistakes that authors make. They think they can just publish a book and put it on Amazon and they're going to be instant millionaires, but it's not the way it is. You have to promote. You have to actively get out there and promote your work.
And you have to promote on the internet as well, don't you?
You do,
I mean,
yes.
it's various social media and.
Yeah, that's very important nowadays.
And I know I see a lot on social media with Kentuckiana authors and
Right.
some other groups. So I guess an important part of it is networking as well with other authors.
Oh, it is, yeah, and that's how I learn about most events. An author tells me about an event, and I'll check it out, and there I'll go. So, yeah.
Now you've written. You're going to be there with your novel. Are you working on another novel now, or?
Several, actually. I started another historical. It's going to be set in Kentucky this time, around the 1880s. And then I'm doing a third romantic comedy and a few other. I've got another children's book in the works as well. Yeah.
You don't find that difficult
to juggle?
like that?
Yes, I do. It does get pretty difficult sometimes, but I'm a mom of 3 kids, so I'm used to the juggling act.
Okay. I was going to ask you too on your children's books. I assume you work with an illustrator too, don't you?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So it's you have to. It's almost kind of a team project.
It is actually. Her name's Kelsey King, and she lives in North Carolina. So I'll send her my manuscript, and then she'll come up with some sketches, and then work out a storyboard, and we'll just kind of collaborate till we get it, how we both like it. And so yeah, I give her a lot of artistic leeway, and just interpret it how she sees fit. And
Well, so how do you get feedback on let's say your children's books? Does she provide feedback? This doesn't seem right, or maybe why don't you do this, or maybe your kids, or
sometimes, but I usually send them out to let other authors and moms, read them to their kids and get kids feedback, because that's really important.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, I appreciate you being here, and wish you
Thanks.
all the success at the book fair.
Thank you very much.
Our second guest is Lauren Brandenburg, and Lauren, I understand you're originally from Georgetown.
Yes, I grew up in Lexington, moved to Georgetown when I was in junior high, and then stayed there all the way through college.
And then you moved around, and you're now in Nashville.
I met my husband at Georgetown College. Okay. We lived in Cincinnati for 12 years, and then moved to Nashville 3 years ago.
Okay. And your book is the
It's Boone the
you say it.
Sanctified is the one that I'll be signing. I'll have the other two with me. Boone the Sanctified is the third book in the Books of the Gardener series, and it is a middle grade Christian fiction sci-fi.
Okay, okay, sci-fi. I wasn't really aware of that. It's your first book was what, The Ordinary, Boone the Ordinary, and then Boone the Forgotten. And can you give us what these stories are about, how they run?
Absolutely. The series is going to be a total of 10 books.
Okay.
The first 3 are about the character of Boone. The second 3 will be about a character named Orlo, and then the third are about Lewis. And then in book 10, the 3 characters will come back together. But Boone sort of sets the stage. He's the one who finds the underground world of the Mishpachah based on a local urban legend that he uncovers in Georgetown, Kentucky.
Okay.
So he uses clues in the stained glass windows of his church to find this mysterious world. And then by the time we get to book 3, we have false prophets coming in, making a mess, and we have boats that sail on underground rivers, and water that glows, and villains that try to take over.
Wow.
A lot going on.
I've always wondered, and with you too, Misty, with your fantasy, how do you guys come up with this stuff? It's
Well, my writing class, when I talk about the books and how I came up with the idea, I really started with the church. I was visiting my parents one day in Georgetown, was sitting in church looking at all the stained glass windows and the designs, noticed one window in particular that just really didn't make sense. And so, I probably should have been paying attention in church, but I wasn't. And so I started doodling, and the ideas just started coming one right after the other. And now my original idea for the story, it changed. I actually had a female heroine to begin with, and now I have a boy. And so everything just sort of started growing from there. And I guess the rest of it's just imagination.
right. It's a very vivid imagination, I would think. It's
Yeah.
now how you say this is for what, middle
grade,
kids?
ages 9 to 12. My audience varies. I do have some older readers and some youngers that are reading it aloud with their families.
Okay. Now I understand you're a former English teacher, and now you're a homeschool teacher.
Yes, I'm a homeschool mom.
Okay.
And I teach writing in our co-op, which co-op is an organization of people that get together, homeschool families, and then my children will take science and history with another mother while I teach writing to their children.
Okay, I always wondered how that worked. I mean, how a mother or a father could sit there and know all these subjects. So it's really kind of a co-op then with.
It is. Some families do teach their children all the subjects, but for me and writing and the time that it takes to do that, it really helps that I have someone else teaching my children the subjects that I feel that I would have to prepare for the most.
Now what do you like to read?
Oh my goodness, I read everything from classics to I do read a lot of YA, the young adult that's real popular right now. I do read a lot of middle grade. I loved A Wrinkle in Time was one of my most favorite books growing up. I still visit those books occasionally. I'm reading some fantasy Christian fiction right now. So it really is just kind of across the board. I don't read a whole lot of romance. I just have a hard time with that. It's just not my the genre I prefer to read, but anything with a little bit of adventure is going to be pretty good.
What year was your first book published?
Oh my, I believe we released Boone the Ordinary in 2012. It was a very, very rough copy, and I always tell people, if you see those old versions, let's just take it and throw it in the trash.
Okay.
Because it was a really poor copy, poorly done, just I guess a lot of young writer in me didn't do very well with that. So we re-released it in 2014. I pulled it, new cover, new edits, added some things just to make the story a little bit more exciting. So in 2014, I released Boone the Ordinary, and then that was in January 2014 of July, The Forgotten, and then The Sanctified in December.
Okay, how many words do you recall?
About
in each?
about 65,000 words a book.
Okay, that's probably about the average for a young adult.
It
book,
is.
Isn't it? Now, did you self-publish another book before these, or was?
No,
Okay.
These were just my first self-published books.
I bring up self-publishing is that I understand that these were all self-published, but now you've got an agent and you're.
I do. The idea behind self-publishing for me was to eventually get a traditional, larger publishing house. As I was doing research and trying to figure out how do I get an agent, how do I get a publishing house, I kept seeing people say, well, you need to have sold so many books. And I thought, well, how do I sell books if I don't have a publisher? And there was a little bit of pride involved. I didn't want to be an indie author. I just didn't think that was good enough. So once, through a lot of prayer and getting over my pride, my husband encouraged me to self-publish, and we did. And it was really good because I was able to figure out who exactly my market was. That's when I realized that the homeschool market really loved the books. And so it's done well. So now, because I did self-publish, I kind of have caught the eye of an agent, and he's a phenomenal man, and he is currently talking with larger publishing houses to see about getting the whole series picked up.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
It's but I guess you're not waiting on that, though, are you? I mean, you're writing.
I am writing. I have book 4 complete. I have a whole pile of homeschoolers that are really excited for it to come out, but I can't release it because I'm holding it for a traditional publishing house.
I understand that the books themselves originally weren't marketed for homeschoolers or to homeschoolers, but you got a letter from or an email from a fan in Nebraska?
In Nebraska, yeah. I don't know why it skipped my mind. I'm a homeschool mom, so it would have made sense to market it to the homeschool community. But I originally wrote them for children growing up in faith-based homes. Now they are faith-based, but they really can go for any child that wants to read them. So that was my target audience. A father in Nebraska got a hold of an ebook when I did a promotion, and he sent me a personal message saying, we are a homeschool family. You should really market these to homeschoolers. We have used it as a project, and if you have any study questions we could use, that would be great. So right then I was like, that's what I have to do. I need to market these to homeschoolers, other families like me. So I created discussion questions, activities online, interactive Pinterest boards. The students can go online and ask the characters questions, and the characters will respond to them. And I attend homeschool conferences, speak at homeschool conferences, and they've just done really well.
I was going to mention that, like Misty, you do get out and go to conferences and network a lot.
As she said, the biggest misconception is that you just write the book and then you go and you're done and that's it, and you just kind of let it do what it does, but it's not. It's so much work. Last year I attended 3 homeschool conferences. My family traveled because I'm a homeschool mom. We can all travel together. That works out really well. Sure. But then I also attended other writers' conferences, individual book signings. We were just gone a lot in order just to get the word out. Now
is this your first Kentucky Book Fair?
Yes, I'm really excited though, because Kentucky is my home. People always say, well, where are you from? And I go back to Kentucky because Kentucky's my home. And so to be a part of this book fair is a really big deal to me.
Yeah, I think Happy Chandler once said, Kentuckians are always going home.
Yeah.
And I used to live in New York and some other places, but I was still a Kentuckian. Well, listen, I appreciate you being here, and wish you all the success.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
There. And our third guest is Jerry Buck Deaton. And Jerry, you're going to have a title you had here last year, right? And that's Kentucky Boy.
My Life in 20 Words. And a lot of people have said that's not a very long book. But what I tried to do with that, Michael, it started out, my wife and I, and you talk about Kentuckians always going home. Well, I'm an Eastern Kentuckian, and we really go home. And I've always heard the statement that you can take the boy out of the mountains, but you can't take the mountain out of the boy. And that's just exactly what this book means to me. My wife and I were riding around some back road in Eastern Kentucky back 10 years ago probably, and all of a sudden she mentioned that she was actually envious that I was, that I had such a sense of place of where I was from, and that she was from actually Jefferson County, and just didn't really feel that same tie to the land and the people that I had for Eastern Kentucky. And I thought, well, I don't have too many people envy me from being from Eastern Kentucky. And most of us, when we hear anything, when we get feedback from being in Eastern Kentucky, typically it's negative. So I decided I wanted to write a book that I didn't have anything outstanding happen to me. I didn't have anything, thank goodness, traumatic, but I had a very good, solid, just wonderful boyhood growing up in the mountains of eastern Kentucky. And I wanted people to know that we had a decent life, that we wore shoes, that we had decent facilities to live in, and that we were not the exception. So what I decided to do, I wanted, in a little twist on a memoir, I decided instead of just doing a chronological viewpoint of straight on through, I decided to take 20 words that I thought really summed up my life. And some of the words were sawmill. I'm a fifth generation sawmill Deaton. I decided Christmas, my family would just all pile in. There'd be 40 or 50 of us on Christmas Eve at my grandmother's house on Longs Creek. And just those memories from that and the things that we did and the traditions that we had. Christmas ended up a good word. School, I wanted people to know what it was like to go to, to walk out and catch a school bus at 7 in the morning on a fall mountain day and go to a little elementary school that didn't have any air conditioning and carpeting and all that stuff. And so I wrote about school and my progress all the way through school. I got hurt a lot, so I wrote about pain.
Yeah.
And one of the questions my wife on her first trip back to Breathitt County was, what did you all do when you got hurt? And so I told her, my dad cut 2 of his fingers off at a sawmill. I fell off of a bridge and broke both of my arms. Broke my collarbone in football practice. And every time I had to be rushed to Lexington. And that's just the way it was over curvy roads. So it was pretty perilous. And so I wrote about pain, mischief. I was into something constantly.
I can't believe that.
Absolutely. Church is probably my favorite story. I was a Presbyterian boy in an evangelical Baptist world.
Okay.
And that had some interesting twists and turns to it. So all in all, I took 20 words and I wanted people to see what the mountain life experience was in the 60s and 70s back in eastern Kentucky, because it really is a life that's long ago and far away.
Well, that's really, I've gone to your website, and that's really resonated with people across the state, though.
Well, it has, and it's really what's been my drive for the last 5 or 6 years that I've been writing books and making films. Eastern Kentucky has been the whole, it's just the whole reason I'm writing and making films is my Eastern Kentucky experience. So,
now, speaking of films, I understand you're working on a film on Harry Cottle, and what's the status report on that?
Well, I hope to have that. It's in the mid-editing stage. We've got a rough edit completed. I hope to have it completed probably by the end of this year, and then a rollout probably in early spring.
You had a previous film too. That was.
I did. I did The Feuds of Bloody Breathitt. I'm from Breathitt County, and of course it had the largest feud. The Hatfields and McCoy was a slap fight compared to what Breathitt County had. They had 12 killed in 12 years. We had 40 killed in 11 months in 1902 alone. And it started over on my little end of the county, the southern end of the county near Buckhorn. Worked its way all the way into Jackson. 40 years later, it worked its way back. And my great-great-grandfather was involved in one of the last killings that pretty much ended the feud. So hundreds probably of people died in that. And this little film I made, I wanted it to reflect the history, but I also wanted it to be some of my family's story and current day Breathitt County. So I worked a lot of different layers. I try to do that with my films. I work as many layers as I can into it to make it as interesting and as all-encompassing as I can.
It's aired on KET.
Well, and it's been 4 or 5 years, and I hear every single day almost somebody says, I saw that last night. And they're showing it more now, I think, than they were 4 years ago when it came out. So it seems to be something that it's just, if you can make a sweet story about the feuds, I guess that's what I tried to do. I didn't want to make it brutal and pointing fingers. So that was really my
And you have another
objective.
title too, Appalachian Ghost Stories,
I do.
Tales from Bloody Breath, which I get to
And that was my first book.
Okay.
And you all were talking about how you write and what the creative forces are. One of the stories, those are all ghost stories. They're all mountain ghost stories, and I made almost all of them up. One of them I made based on my ring. I just looked down. I was telling some stories to some kids one day, and they got tired of hearing the 3 or 4 standard ones. So I looked down and I saw this ring, and it was all scratched up. And I built a story completely around that ring. And another one, I took a picture of a young man who had died in a car wreck back in the early 70s. And I had always, at our dinners on the ground and our Memorial Day celebrations, which we would go to, I would always go up there, and I'd noticed that when I was a kid, this young boy's black and white picture that was glued onto his tombstone. And so I wrote another one of my ghost stories was completely based on that little picture, and everything just kind of bloomed around that.
Okay.
So,
Listen, thanks for being here, and they all have great websites. Yours is.
I've got 2 websites. My children's book is mistybakerbooks.com,
Okay.
and romance is mistyparker.com.
And yours?
It's laurenhbrandenburg.com. And if you want to know more about the books specifically, you can go to thebooksofthegardener.com.
Okay. And Jerry, yours is?
JerryDeaton.com.
Okay. And for the Kentucky Book Fair, it's kybookfair.blogspot.com, and again on Facebook. We appreciate you being here with us today, and look forward to seeing you next week, and especially we want to see you at the Kentucky Book Fair on November the 14th.